Hello and welcome to an episode of Historically Marked. I am Jason in downtown Chicago, Illinois. I'm actually near the south end of Grant Park, which is very huge. Lots of stuff that's cool to see. And I'm actually not that far within walking distance from the museum campus. But the reason why I'm doing an episode here is because I just happened to stumble upon a historical marker. And I was recently in the state of Mississippi and I went on the Blues Trail and caught a few markers there. But there is actually, and I knew this before coming here, they put a few outside the state of Mississippi. Like there's one in Tennessee, maybe a couple there, one in Illinois, which is here, and then there's one in Los Angeles, and I think there's one in New York, if I'm not mistaken. But the one in Illinois is just literally right behind me, and it's about the Chicago blues scene and how a lot of Southern blues musicians, African Americans primarily, moved up here as part of the Great Migration, and they found a much better life and a reason to sing the blues. All right, let's get on to it. And like I said, I stumbled upon a lot of these Mississippi Blues Commission markers, and I don't really know how many there are. I want to say there are a little bit over 100, but let me go ahead and read it to you. There's also a back that's very detailed. The Blues Trail from Mississippi to Chicago. The Great Migration from the South to the Promised Land of Chicago brought more African Americans here from Mississippi than any other state, especially during and after World War II. With the migrants came the Delta Blues that was the foundation of the classic post-war Chicago blues style. Muddy Waters, who became the king of Chicago blues, was among the thousands of Mississippians who arrived on Illinois Central trains at Central Station, which stood across the street from this site from 1893 to 1974. Okay, that's something I was not aware of. I mean, I'm not really much of a Chicago expert, but yeah, I did not realize there was a train station here. I thought they only had that one Union Station, but that's a little besides the point. But I'm going to go ahead and skip on to the back. All right, a little sun kind of blocking, but as many of you know, a lot of musicians from Sam Cooke to Muddy Waters to the Smashing Pumpkins, there's so many that have come from Chicago. But of course, Smashing Pumpkins is not mentioned on here, but Sweet Home Chicago, I know a lot of you have probably heard that song. It's been covered many times, but the originator of that song, Robert Johnson, he never moved to the place he praised in his song Sweet Home Chicago. But his sentiments were shared by thousands of fellow Mississippian natives who came here in search of a better life. In Chicago bound, bluesman Jimmy Rogers called the city the greatest place around. And in Chicago blues, Arthur Big Boy Crudup deemed it the grandest place on earth. Many migrants traveled north on the Illinois Central Railroad via its extensive lines that spread across the Deep South, including 800 miles of Illinois Central-owned Yazoo and Mississippi Valley Railroad track that crisscrossed the Mississippi Delta. Pullman porters on Illinois Central trains to Mississippi often delivered copies of the African American newspaper, the Chicago Defender, which organized migrant clubs and arranged group discounts for train fare northward. The first wave of the Great Migration began with World War I, and between 1910 and 1920, the number of black Chicagoans who were born in Mississippi increased from 4,612 to 19. Wow, check that out. The rise of the blues recording industry in Chicago attracted many musicians, and during the 1930s, blues artists who claimed Mississippi roots included Willie Dixon, Memphis Minnie, Lil Green, and Big Bill Brunzi. During World War II, the need for factory labor helped fuel a larger wave of migration, and between 1940 and 1950, some 150,000 Mississippians moved here. Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Bo Diddley, Jimmy Reed, Sunnyland Slim, Elmore James, Sonny Boy Williamson, Number 2, also known as Rice Miller, Otis Rush, and Magic Sam were among the many who arrived in the 1940s and 50s and found recording opportunities with Chess, VJ, which was co-founded by Mississippi native Vivian Carter, Cobra, and other labels. Blues clubs proliferated on the south and west sides, and Chicago's airwaves also took on a down-home Mississippi flavor on programs hosted by Purvis Spann of WVON and Al Benson of WGES, who earned the honorary title the Mayor of Bronzeville as the South Side's most popular personality. Local labels Delmark and Testament began recording blues albums in Chicago for a new generation of listeners in the 1960s, paving the way for other companies such as Alligator and Earwig. And I'm going to kind of skip down here, but it says here, foreign tourists made Chicago a musical destination, and the local blues audience adopted Sweet Home Chicago as its theme song as the blues expanded to the north side, the suburbs, and here to Grant Park, where the world-renowned Chicago Blues Festival debuted in 1984. So that kind of explains why they put the marker here as opposed to a popular blues scene like Rush Street. Eric Clapton, I know, did a live album there. But here's a lot of photos, like that's the Illinois Central Railroad, and that is Muddy Waters right there sitting down. Well, him right there. And then you also have Willie Dixon and Buddy Guy on the right. The first blues club owner ever elected to the Blues Foundation's Blues Hall of Fame was Teresa Needham, who established the fabled Teresa's Lounge in Chicago in 1949 after her arrival from Mississippi. That is her at her club in 1974. And then that railroad building I was talking about, which once stood over there, that was demolished in 1974, according to the marker. Sam Cooke was born in Mississippi. I think he was born in Greenville, and he was raised in Chicago, where he began his career as a gospel singer. Chicago-based soul and soul blues singers Denise LaSalle, Jerry Butler, Tyrone Davis, Little Milton, Junior Parker, and Syl Johnson, and many others also came from Mississippi. And then there's a picture of Al Benson, the old swing master, who was once Chicago's most influential DJ. He also recorded blues and R&B artists on his Parrot and Blue Lake labels, among others. His nephews, fellow Mississippi transplants George and Ernest Leaner, operated an important Chicago soul label, Wonderful Records. And if you want to check out the Mississippi Blues Trail, like if you're going down to that state, yeah, it's definitely interesting. And this was also funded in part by grant of National Endowment of the Arts. All right, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Historically Marked. Well, I hope you get a chance to find out why Chicago is a blues city. And I know why it is, but I have not checked out a blues club yet, so if you got any recommendations, please comment below. All right, I am Jason, signing off.